Klonoa is one of the most underappreciated and overlooked video game franchises to ever grace the earth. I'll bet only about a half of you have ever heard of him before this video landed in your sub box just now. Sure, Klonoa has always had a devoted fanbase, even if it's not a large one, but he's never quite ascended to the pantheon of popular platforming mascots alongside your Sonics or your Crash Bandicoots. You'd think with its fun, unique gameplay, its stylized, beautiful visuals, amazing soundtrack, and compelling stories that the Klonoa games would be classics in the making. But the series has unfortunately faded into obscurity. Similar to my previous videos about Spyro the Dragon and Banjo-Kazooie, I want to take some time to discuss the series of events which eventually doom Klonoa to a death by obscurity. Now, if you're looking for a thorough retrospective of the Klonoa games and why they're so great, my good pal exoparadigmgamer is in the middle of a comprehensive marathon offering in-depth reviews of all 8 games in the series.
You got that right, sister. Any room for one more in this discussion?
Well, what a coincidence, gentles and ladies men, it's the man himself. Since you're already here, I don't see why not. Well, enough stalling, let's dive into the sad history of the Klonoa series together.
Klonoa first hit the scene in Japan with 1997's Klonoa Door to Phantomile on the PlayStation. For the unversed, Klonoa is an anthropomorphic cross between a rabbit and a cat who always wears his trademark blue cap with the retro Pac-Man symbol on it. Despite being a new video game IP, Door to Phantomile was a huge hit in Japan, selling roughly 50,000 copies in its first week.
That might not sound like much to a North American in 2016 such as myself, but back then in Japan, those numbers made it the 4th best-selling game at the end of 1997. It was a tremendous success for the publishers and developers too. Namco, presently known as Bandai Namco Entertainment, reported that Klonoa was their best-selling IP in that period of time. Of course, Namco having successful game launches and sales is nothing new for them. With IPs like Pac-Man and Tekken, Namco had already built up a respected name for themselves. But Klonoa helped to cement their status as a major game developer and publisher by making their big break on the home console market, whereas in the past, Namco had primarily focused solely on arcade titles.
When Door to Phantomile released in the West in 1998, it was met with similar critical acclaim and financial success. While official numbers aren't available, and estimates are just that, estimates, various interviews with Namco executives suggest that Door to Phantomile did fairly well in North America and Europe. At least well enough to warrant a bunch of sequels.
Something else worth noting here is the director and creator of the series, Hideo Yoshizawa. Klonoa was Mr. Yoshizawa's 10th project, and his visions for the game were pretty admirable. He sought to make Klonoa appealing to both younger and older demographics with action-based platforming and a more emotional, serious story. However, his ideas were soon dropped in favor of a more light-hearted yet still mature plot, which led to some creative conflict with the other developers.
Clashing of different ideas is not uncommon in any creative team, and I guess that's simply what happened with Door to Phantomile. Initially, I thought there was something more to these issues and Yoshizawa not directing any future Klonoa games, but according to multiple interviews with the man, his team was apparently very friendly and passionate. This is probably why he went on to supervise or at least produce future installments in the series.
Anyways, after Klonoa made his first splash on the home console market, Namco capitalized on the success and began to work on 2 Klonoa sequels. The first of these came out in May of 1999 on the Japanese exclusive Bandai WonderSwan. Yep, I'll bet many of you don't even know what a WonderSwan is, and truth be told, I didn't either until this June. The Bandai WonderSwan was essentially made to rival the increasingly popular Nintendo Game Boy in Japan. Surprisingly, this handheld, heavily marketed on its lower selling point and long battery life, actually found mild success, selling about 3.8 million units overall. It eventually failed to compete with Nintendo's monopoly on the handheld market and soon faded into obscurity. Despite this, one of the major releases for the system was the aforementioned Klonoa sequel, entitled Kaze no Klonoa: Moonlight Museum.
Unfortunately for Moonlight Museum, it wasn't received well by critics in Japan, and since it was released on a doomed console to begin with, that didn't bode well for its sales. See, it was this mix of unenthusiastic reviews and the fact that it was released on a floundering system that caused Moonlight Museum to fail financially.
Interestingly, Namco didn't even bother to release the sales numbers for the game, so I can only assume it didn't meet their expectations. Nevertheless, this didn't faze Namco in their production of Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil, the direct sequel to the original PlayStation game.
This time around, Hideo Yoshizawa took a back seat and didn't direct the project. Instead, he supervised the development of Lunatea's Veil while Tsuyoshi Kobayashi, who has almost nothing about him online, directed the game in his stead. Not much is known about the development cycle of Lunatea's Veil though, so we can't assume that anything nefarious took place. Released on March 22, 2001 in Japan and July 25, 2001 in North America, Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil for the PS2 was met with unanimous critical acclaim, but unlike Door to Phantomile, it failed to make its mark financially.
Again, Namco provided no details on the actual sales of Lunatea's Veil, but estimates indicate that it sold as low as 330,000 units, compared to Namco's desired sales figure of 1 million units in the first quarter of its release. By comparison, Ratchet & Clank for the PS2 sold approximately 3.33 million units despite being a new IP for the system.
So, what went wrong? Why did Klonoa 2 sell so poorly while the first game did fairly well in the market? It couldn't have been the game's quality, since everyone who's played it either loved it or thought it was good at worst.
The answer is simple. Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil was weakly marketed to the general public. Lunatea's Veil was among the first titles to be released on the PlayStation 2, so the abundance of other exciting titles, as the console was gaining popularity, immediately made it hard for an already niche series to stand out. Unfortunately, Namco failed to market Klonoa 2 with an assortment of commercials, unlike Ratchet & Clank. Their campaign to advertise Lunatea's Veil was laughably pathetic, and the sales really reflect that. Because Lunatea's Veil had commercially failed due to Namco's incompetence, the company decided to change their focus from home consoles to the Game Boy Advance.
The 3 GBA Klonoa games that released during the early 2000s were received pretty well by the general public that played them, but the sales figures were abysmal, even when compared to the home console games. Believe it or not, there was also a beach volleyball game on the PlayStation 1, but this game never saw a release in North America. In light of the series' disappointing financial returns, Namco decided to quietly do away with Klonoa, starting in 2005 after Klonoa 2 Dream Champ Tournament was localized for North America. They even canceled the GameCube port of Lunatea's Veil in that same time frame.
The Klonoa series lay dormant for years, until Bandai and Namco merged into Bandai Namco Entertainment. The new vice president expressed an interest in bringing Klonoa back. Fans of the series rejoiced at this announcement, as most fans had just accepted the fact that Klonoa may never come back. After redesign polls and more fan input, Mr. Yoshizawa and crew were given the task of remaking Door to Phantomile for Klonoa's 10th anniversary, as it was the best approach according to the Bandai Namco developers. Yoshizawa also made the decision to put the new remake on the Wii to emphasize his original ideal of making something that younger and older demographics could both enjoy.
When Klonoa for the Wii, which dropped the Door to Phantomile subtitle outside of Japan, was released in 2008 and 2009 for Japan and North America respectively, it was met with generally positive reviews across the board. Sure, there was a select group of people that criticized the remake for changing things from the original, but mostly the fans liked it. Mr. Yoshizawa was so satisfied with the work that his team and Payon, the remake's developers, had done, that he had planned to remake Lunatea's Veil if Klonoa for the Wii did well. Sadly, we never did get that remake of Lunatea's Veil, and it's uncertain if we ever will. Klonoa for the Wii did absolutely terrible financially, failing to even pass 20,000 sales worldwide. And this commercial failure, resulting in the absence of any new Klonoa titles to date, is, again, largely due to Bandai Namco Entertainment's lack of advertising.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know Klonoa for the Wii was a thing until 2016. What Bandai Namco needed to do was push this game with elaborate commercials, social media presence, significant E3 presence, and so on, but it never did. Klonoa for the Wii released with practically no anticipation from the community, and thus it failed. Since the revival of Klonoa didn't work, it seems like Bandai Namco Entertainment doesn't even want to bother with the series anymore. We haven't had another Klonoa game in 7 years, and no mention of him other than an online comic series in 2012 that was shut down after its website closed.
It's a shame that this behavior from companies is so common. They mistreat their beloved series with the lack of marketing support,
Chibi Robo,
while expecting them to magically succeed. And thus, Klonoa has passed away, by means of obscurity. But here's hoping that if a new Klonoa game does get greenlit, that Bandai Namco Entertainment will advertise it like hell and finally bring Klonoa into gaming pop culture.
Until then, you can download the PlayStation Door to Phantomile off the PlayStation Network and get 2 of the GBA games off the Wii U Virtual Console, which is the most recent news of Klonoa we've gotten. I'd like to thank my good sir exoparadigmgamer for assisting me in this video, and if you haven't done so already, go give him a subscribe! If you want to watch a long, extremely well-detailed video series about Klonoa, he's your guy. I hear he also really loves requests to make a Super Mario 64 ROR, so be sure to ask him in the comments for that too.
Hey, that's a great idea! And while you're at it, go to the comments section for Haydox's Spyro A Hero's Tale review and explain to him why that game is shite.
But as always, if you want to let me know your thoughts or experience with the Klonoa series, please do so in the comments. I'm curious to know if any of you are as big of Klonoa fans as I am now and EXO is. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.